In this video, I want to show you how to use Scratch to show how plants are actually created. The number phi, if you do 1 over phi and multiply it by 360 degrees, that's how much a leaf usually rotates on a lot of plants. So if I hit spacebar, you can see that should be about 137.5 degrees. And if I keep hitting spacebar, it keeps filling in the empty space. If I hold spacebar, you can see that it has these interesting spiral colors while building the leaves the correct way that plants actually build them. So how do you build this with Scratch? Well, first and foremost, you need a new Scratch program, and we need a new sprite. So over here, if you choose a sprite, you'll notice that none of these are leaves, and we need to make our own. So the way that we do that, we're going to go back, new tab, and let's search for simple leaf. Please and thank you. All right. If I go to images, and we just search for something that looks nice. So some of these have background images, some of them don't have backgrounds. So if we find one without a background, that would be really nice. So as an example of each of those, let's go ahead and find, I don't know. So if I click on this picture, for example, this picture has a background. So if I, here, let me just click on you, right click, copy image, and go to a new tab. So if I go to photop.com. This is kind of like Photoshop, so we can remove backgrounds. If I hit Command V or Control V to paste the image, it has all this other stuff that we don't need. So I want to crop this down to size. So I'm going to come over here to the crop tool, crop you right there, crop you right there. And it's still good, but it has all this white. So to get rid of the white, you come here to the magic wand, and you can change your tolerance to whatever we want. I think it's normally 20, but I do a 50. Select the layer first, click out here, and then hit delete. And then Command-Shift-D to deselect, and then you have a leaf without a background. But this leaf is small, and therefore if you zoom in, it's going to be pixelated, and I don't like it to be pixelated, so no thank you. I'm going to go ahead and X out of view. I want to close it. Let's find a simple leaf that's a little bit higher quality. So this leaf right here is pretty nice, and check it out. It's transparent, so we can go ahead and copy this image, and if we throw it into Photopea, you can see that it's clearly, it has no background, so if I move this around, it has no background. It's really nice. This is ready to go. I don't even need to do anything. So make sure that you right click, and you're going to save this image as, and I'm going to call this a leaf 2, and I will replace it. Okay, so I have leaf 2 downloaded. We don't need these anymore. Yes, we can leave. Oh, shoot, I should say this too, that if you have Photopea open and you have some sort of project in here and you're like, okay, I removed the background. Now I'm ready to use this picture. What do I do next? Well, you'd have to go File, Export as PNG, and then you'd save this as leaf 2 and save. And then you could save it right here as a PNG, but we don't need to do that. We already have a ready to go picture. Also, pro tip, if you are looking for images, you can do a simple leaf transparent background, and you should hopefully be able to find something that already has the background removed. All of these should have the background removed, but sometimes they lie to you. This one does have background removed. That's one we're using. Sometimes they lie and you have to do it yourself anyway. All right, so we need to upload that sprite. So let's go ahead and delete Scratch the Cat. And we're going to go hover over, choose sprite, come up here to upload sprite, and choose our leaf 2, open. All right, so there's our leaf. There's a problem with our leaf, which is it's not in the right spot. For example, if I double click over here and turn degrees, it's turning around the center of the leaf, and I don't want it to turn around the center of the leaf. I want it to turn around the stem of the leaf, and it's way too big. So let's go ahead and fix all of that right now. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure this sets to the right spot. Okay, it's okay over here. So we're going to convert to vector so we can move it around, and I can move this around anywhere I want. And you'll notice it changes up here in the stage. First of all, it's too big, so let's go ahead and drag the corner to make it a lot smaller. And we can zoom in here with the plus. And okay, so this crosshairs that you see in the center, this is where you're going to rotate around. So if I drag the stem of the leaf to the crosshairs, that's exactly where I'm going to rotate around. It's still a little bit too big. I want this to be small, so it gives me lots of room to get bigger. The smaller it is, the better it'll be in the long run. So make sure that we're rotating around the crosshairs there. All right, this sprite is ready to go. I'm going to come back over here to the code. So we need some starting conditions to make sure that we start in the same position every single time. We don't want the leaf to start in the top left by accident or anything like that. So whenever we click on the green flag, I want it to start in the right spot. So how do I do that? So in the event that I click the green flag, I want the motion to go to 0 and then hit tab 0. So let's try that. When I hit green flag, all right, it goes to the right spot. But you'll notice that this leaf sprite and that leaf sprite are in different rotations. So I also want it to point to the right spot. So let's go ahead and drag point in direction 90 degrees. So when I hit the green flag, okay, now these two leaves look exactly the same. It's starting in the center. All the starting conditions are set. What I want to do now is I want to be able to rotate this thing when I start as a clone. I want a bunch of leaves here, which means I do have to clone myself. So I need to figure out what happens when I am a clone. So coming down here to the events, I guess it's technically control. When I create a clone of myself, so no, when I start as a clone, what do? I want to get bigger and I want to rotate. So when I start as a clone, I want to get bigger. So getting bigger is a look. I'm going to change size by, I don't know, 5. And I want to rotate a little bit. So I'm going to come to motion and I'm going to turn by how many degrees? And we talked about this in math class, but 1 over phi is about 222.5. But if you do 360 minus that, it's 137.5. So this is the actual angle that most plants will rotate their leaves by in order to make sure that they optimize how much sun they get. So check it out. When I start as a clone, it's going to rotate, but I haven't said anything to make the clone. So I need to make the clone. I'm going to do this wrong to talk about my mistake. It's a good learning mistake. So in the event, I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, if I hit the spacebar, I'm going to start a clone. So spacebar, and I'm going to create a clone. Watch what happens. If I hit the green flag, it's ready to go. Hit spacebar, spacebar, spacebar. It seems to be working, right? The problem is I'm still hitting spacebar and nothing is happening. And the reason for that is my clones are also making clones of themselves, and it's kind of it's bogging down Scratch, and it won't go any further. I think it caps it to 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe 9 or 10. I can't count that really quickly, but it caps it at like 9. How do you avoid that cap? Well, the answer is make something else create the clones for you. Instead of having the sprite create its own sprites, have a backdrop create the sprites. So let's go ahead and copy this code by just dragging it into the backdrop and then deleting this by dragging it off to the side, and come to the backdrop and says, okay, when a space is hit, make a clone of leaf 2. The problem with this is, here I'll hit green flag and hit spacebar and watch what happens. It creates a clone, but now it's still talking about that leaf. It's going to create another clone on top of it. So if I hit spacebar again, it's creating a bunch of clones over this leaf over and over again. There's like 4 or 5 leaves behind this leaf, and it's not going on to the next rotation. So in order to make sure that you have the correct rotations, you need to make a local variable. Here's how you do that. You go to variables, you're going to make a variable. I'm going to call this variable num for number, because I'm lazy. I don't want to actually type out the word number. Essentially what I want to do is I want to increase number by 1 whenever I hit space. So I want to change number by 1 whenever I hit space. Now that needs to connect. And in theory, if I hit space, check it out. It goes up and up and up and up and up. So everything over here in the code for the stage is done. So now let's click back over the sprite. If I hit green flag, I want this number to reset to 0. If I hit green flag, nothing happens. So I need to say, okay, set number to 0 when I hit green flag. So now if I hit green flag, all right, initial conditions have all been set. And I want to leave number up there. I can uncheck this to hide it, but I'm going to leave it there so I can actually see what's going on. Now let's check out what happens. If I hit spacebar, nothing really happens. I still have the same clone over and over again on itself. So I need to increase it by multiplying this number by this rotational degree. So let's go to the operators to do some multiplication. I'm going to say, okay, I want to multiply my variable number by this angle 137.5, and that's going to replace the 137.5. Same thing, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this and throw it in here and multiply this by 5. So now everything is going to increase by the right size, and it's going to turn the right number of degrees. Check it out. If I hit the green flag and hold spacebar, oh, it looks pretty good, but they're on top of each other. How do you make them go behind each other, aside from that very first one, which is on top? To make them go behind, you go over here to looks, and you want to come down here to where it says go to back layer. So when it starts as a clone, go to the back layer, and now let's try it. If I hold spacebar, and we're basically done. The one additional trick, because of this lesson, I want to be able to clearly identify the spirals. Right now you can see that there is a counterclockwise spiral that comes out and goes kind of up to the left. And there's also a clockwise spiral that's sometimes harder for students to see, but it comes out here and down to the right. I want to clearly identify that with color. So I'm going to add a little bit more to my code. You'll remember over here, it was very clear by the color what the spirals are. And there's 2 different spirals, maybe 3 depending on how you define it. So I'm going to also change the color effect by a certain number. And again, I have to multiply by the variable number. So I played around with this in advance, and I just did it by trial and error. I don't know what mathematical way there is to do this quite. Actually, I just figured it out, but I think you do 360 divided by the number of spirals that you see. But I did this by trial and error. If you change the color by 25 times the number, check it out. So if I hold spacebar, I see this clockwise spiral. I'm just holding down spacebar. I'm going to let go of spacebar. So I'm going to go ahead and add a comment here to this piece and say, okay, if this is the piece that's added on, I have a clockwise spirals. And how many spirals do you see? So starting with this light blue one on the right, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Clockwise spirals, 8. Maybe I'll say that's 8 clockwise spirals. All right, and then what happens if I change this a little bit? So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this. What happens if I change it by 15.5? Then that's not going to be 8 clockwise spirals. Check it out now. If I hit the green flag and, ooh, I need to change this so it goes to the right size. So I have to come to looks. I need to set size to 100%. If I hit the green flag, okay, now it sets to 100%. If I hold spacebar now, you'll notice that there's a different spiral that forms. This time I'm going counterclockwise, and guess how many I have this time? Starting with this dark blue on the right, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 spirals, and they're counterclockwise this time. All right. So these different colors will affect the different number of spirals that you see, because without this, you can't see any of the colors at all. But with each of these pieces, you can see the spirals that I was talking about from before. It's very visual to see the spirals. So you can see spirals that way, 13 counterclockwise, or if I restart this, I can see that there's clockwise spirals as well. It looks really nice, right? Cool. So that concludes the video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys later.